My name is Sarah Mitchell. I'm 46 years old, and I never planned to raise a wild fox. But 3 years ago, a tiny red fox kit followed me home from my morning walk, and I made a decision that would change both our lives forever. I live alone on the outskirts of Portland, Oregon, in a small house backing onto forest land. My husband passed away 5 years ago, and my children are grown with families of their own. I work from home as a freelance graphic designer, which gives me flexibility and solitude, both things I've come to appreciate. That spring morning started like any other. I was walking the trail behind my property, coffee thermos in hand, watching the sunrise paint the trees golden. The forest was alive with birdsong and the rustle of small creatures. I loved these quiet moments before the world fully woke up. As I turned back toward home, I heard a sound, a tiny, desperate crying. I stopped, listening carefully. There it was again, coming from a dense patch of bushes about 20 feet off the trail. Against my better judgment, I pushed through the undergrowth and found him. A red fox kit, no bigger than a kitten, huddled against a fallen log. His eyes were barely open, his russet fur matted and dirty. He was shivering, crying weakly. I looked around for his mother or siblings, but the area was silent. No den nearby, no adult foxes responding to his cries. I knew I should leave him. Wild animals belong in the wild. Their mothers often leave them briefly while hunting, but something about his helplessness pulled at me. I waited 30 minutes, hidden, watching. No mother came. The kit's cries grew weaker. Finally, I made my choice. I carefully picked him up, tucking him inside my jacket against my chest. He was so small, so fragile. I could feel his tiny heart racing. I carried him home, already knowing this was probably a mistake, but unable to walk away. At home, I made a nest of blankets in a cardboard box and placed the kit inside near the heater. He was hypothermic and dehydrated. I called my friend Rachel, a veterinarian who specialized in wildlife rehabilitation. She arrived within the hour, bringing supplies and a worried expression. "Sarah, you can't keep a wild fox," she said immediately after examining him. "Even if you save him, he needs to go to a proper wildlife rehab center." I nodded, but something in me resisted. "Can you at least help me stabilize him first?" Rachel sighed but agreed. She showed me how to prepare formula, how to feed him with a syringe, how to stimulate him to eliminate waste. The kit was about 2 weeks old, she estimated. His chances weren't great, but they weren't zero either. Over the next 48 hours, I barely slept. Every 2 hours I fed the kit, cleaned him, monitored his temperature. Slowly, he grew stronger. His cries became louder, more demanding. His eyes opened fully, revealing bright amber irises that studied me with innocent curiosity. I named him Rusty, after his beautiful red coat. I knew I shouldn't name him. Naming meant attachment. Attachment meant keeping, and keeping meant breaking laws and common sense. But I did it anyway. By the end of the first week, Rusty was thriving. He was active, playful, constantly exploring his box. I moved him to a larger enclosure in my spare bedroom. Rachel visited again, bringing more supplies and renewed warnings. "He's doing well," she admitted. "But Sarah, you need to contact a rehab center. The longer you wait, the harder it'll be." "I know," I said, but I didn't call anyone. I told myself I'd do it next week, then the week after, then the one after that. Time passed, and Rusty grew from a helpless kit into a curious, energetic young fox. He imprinted on me completely, following me everywhere, sleeping curled against me at night. By 3 months old, Rusty was fully weaned and eating solid food, mostly high-quality dog food supplemented with raw chicken and eggs. He was beautiful, with a luxurious red coat, black legs, and a magnificent bushy tail. His ears were large and expressive, constantly swiveling to catch sounds. His personality was a mix of dog-like affection and cat-like independence. He bonded with me intensely but remained wary of strangers. When Rachel visited, Rusty would hide or watch from a distance. He never bit or showed aggression, just maintained his space. With me, he was different. He'd greet me with excited yips, groom my hands with his tongue, curl up in my lap while I worked. I knew I was in too deep. I should have surrendered him months ago, but I couldn't bear the thought of him in a cage at a rehab center, possibly never released because he was too habituated to humans. I told myself I was giving him a better life. I converted my garage into a large enclosure with climbing structures, hiding places, and enrichment toys. During the day, when weather permitted, I'd let Rusty explore the fenced backyard under supervision. He'd chase butterflies, dig holes, practice his pouncing on insects. He was happy, or so I believed. My daughter Emma visited one weekend and was shocked to find Rusty. "Mom, that's a wild animal. You can't just keep a fox like a pet." "He's not a pet," I argued. "He's family, and he couldn't survive in the wild now. I saved him." Emma wasn't convinced but saw how attached I was. "Just be careful. Wild animals have instincts you can't predict." I should have listened to her warning. As Rusty approached his first birthday, subtle changes began. He became more restless, pacing his enclosure endlessly. His vocalizations changed. Less playful yipping, more sharp barks and haunting screams at night. Fox mating season was approaching, and his hormones were awakening instincts I couldn't satisfy. The first real problem occurred one evening in late winter. I was sitting on the couch reading when Rusty, who'd been curled beside me, suddenly tensed, his ears pinned back. His body went rigid. Then he lunged at my hand, not playfully, but with genuine aggression. His teeth caught my wrist, breaking skin. "Rusty, no!" I pulled away, shocked. He'd never bitten me before, never shown any aggression. He immediately backed away, his body language confused, almost guilty. I cleaned the wound. It wasn't deep, but it was a warning I couldn't ignore. I called Rachel the next morning. "His hormones are kicking in," she explained. "Male foxes become territorial and aggressive during breeding season. Sarah, he's not a kid anymore. He's a wild animal reaching sexual maturity. This will only get worse." "What do I do?" I asked, my voice shaking. "You need to find a sanctuary that can take him. Somewhere with space. Ideally with other foxes. He needs to be with his own kind." The thought of giving up Rusty devastated me, but I knew she was right. Over the next few weeks, I researched fox sanctuaries across the Pacific Northwest. Most were full or didn't take habituated foxes. One sanctuary in Washington agreed to evaluate Rusty, but they couldn't take him for 3 months. In the meantime, I had to manage an increasingly unpredictable fox. Rusty's behavior became erratic. Some days he was his old affectionate self. Other days he'd pace restlessly, refuse food, ignore me completely. He'd scream at night, a bone-chilling sound that echoed through the house. My neighbors began complaining. One threatened to call animal control. I knew I was running out of time, but I wasn't prepared for how dramatically things would escalate. It happened on a Tuesday afternoon in early March. I was working at my desk when Rusty, who'd been sleeping in his enclosure, suddenly started screaming. Not his usual vocalizations, but genuine distress calls. I rushed to the garage and found Rusty throwing himself against the enclosure walls, his fur bristled, his eyes wild. I'd never seen him like this. Without thinking, I opened the enclosure door to check if he was hurt. It was a terrible mistake. Rusty bolted past me, faster than I could react. He ran through the open garage door into the yard. I chased after him, calling his name, but he didn't respond. He headed straight for the fence line, scrambling up and over with ease I didn't know he possessed. "Rusty, come back!" I screamed, but he was gone, disappearing into the forest. My heart pounded. He'd never been in the wild alone. He didn't know how to hunt properly, avoid predators, navigate the dangers of the forest. Despite his instincts, he was still largely domesticated. I couldn't let him die out there. I grabbed a flashlight and headed into the woods, following the direction he'd run. I called his name over and over, listening for any response. The forest was vast, and darkness was approaching. After 2 hours of searching, I had to admit defeat. Rusty was gone. I returned home devastated, crying so hard I could barely see. I'd failed him. I'd kept him when I should have let him go, and now he was out there, vulnerable and alone. I called Rachel, who tried to comfort me. "He's a fox, Sarah. Instinct runs deep. He might surprise you." But I couldn't be consoled. That night I left food and water outside the garage, hoping against hope he'd return. I barely slept, listening for any sound, any sign of him. Morning came with no sign of Rusty. I continued my search, walking miles of forest trails, checking every dense brush and hollow tree. Nothing. My daughter Emma drove up to help search. Together we covered more ground but still found no trace. 3 days passed. I was losing hope. Then, on the 4th morning, I heard it. A familiar yip from the backyard. I ran outside and there was Rusty, standing at the fence line, looking bedraggled and thin but alive. Relief flooded through me so intensely I nearly collapsed. I approached slowly, not wanting to spook him. "Rusty, you came back," He watched me warily, his body language different, more alert, more wild. But when I knelt and extended my hand, he slowly approached, sniffing cautiously. Then he pressed his head against my palm, a gesture so familiar it broke my heart. I led him back to the garage enclosure with food. He followed but kept distance, no longer the completely trusting kid I'd raised. Something had changed in those 3 days. He'd tasted freedom, experienced the wild, and it had awakened something in him. Rachel came to examine him. He's healthy, just dehydrated and hungry. But Sarah, look at him. He's not your house fox anymore. He got a taste of his true nature. I knew she was right. The sanctuary in Washington had an opening sooner than expected. In 2 weeks, it was time to let Rusty go. The hardest 2 weeks of my life followed. I spent every possible moment with Rusty, trying to memorize everything about him. The way his ears twitched when he heard birds, his unique vocalizations, the pattern of his fur. He was more distant now, often staring toward the forest, his body tense with longing. I told myself this was the right thing. He deserved to be with other foxes, to have space to roam, to express his natural behaviors. But knowing something intellectually and accepting it emotionally are two different things. The day arrived to transport Rusty to the sanctuary. Emma came with me for support. We drove 4 hours north to a beautiful property with acres of natural habitat, other rescued foxes, and experienced caretakers. The sanctuary director, Maria, was kind and understanding. "We'll take good care of him," Maria promised. "He'll have a large enclosure connected to natural forest land. There are 2 other male foxes here who were also raised by humans. They might form a small coalition." I carried Rusty's transport crate to his new enclosure. It was enormous compared to what I'd provided. Trees, rocks, dens, running water, 3 acres of fenced wilderness. I opened the crate door. Rusty hesitated, then stepped out cautiously. He immediately began exploring, sniffing everything, his tail held high. He didn't look back at me. Maybe that was better. "Can I visit him?" I asked Maria, voice breaking. "Of course, though be prepared. He may not respond to you the same way anymore. Foxes are remarkably adaptable. He'll form new bonds here." I said goodbye to Rusty, even though he was too busy exploring to acknowledge me. Emma gently led me away. I cried the entire drive home. The house felt unbearably empty without Rusty's presence. No yipping greetings, no bushy tail following me from room to room, no warm body curled against me at night. For weeks, I grieved. I'd lost my husband. My children had grown and left. And now Rusty was gone too. The silence was deafening. But gradually, I began to heal. I threw myself into work, reconnected with old friends, started volunteering at a local wildlife education center. 3 months after leaving Rusty at the sanctuary, I drove back to visit. Maria led me to his enclosure. I saw him immediately, his distinctive coat, his confident gait. He was with 2 other foxes, playing a chasing game through the trees. He looked healthy, vibrant, truly alive. "Rusty," I called softly. He stopped, ears swiveling toward my voice. For a moment, I thought he'd recognize me. He trotted closer, studying me through the fence. Then something flickered in his amber eyes. Recognition? Memory? He chirped once, a sound I knew, before turning and running back to his companions. It hurt, but it was also perfect. He remembered me enough to acknowledge my existence, but he'd moved on. He had a life here, a proper life with his own kind. Maria smiled. "He's thriving. He's become best friends with the older male, Jasper. They hunt together, play together, sleep in the same den. I think he's happy." "Thank you," I whispered, forgiving him what I couldn't. On the drive home, I felt different, lighter somehow. I'd made mistakes with Rusty, kept him too long, let attachment cloud judgment. But I'd also saved his life when he was helpless, given him love when he needed it, and ultimately let him go when it was right. Over the following year, I visited Rusty 3 more times. Each visit, he seemed more distant, more fox, and less the creature I'd raised. By the final visit, he didn't approach the fence at all, merely watched from a distance before disappearing into the trees. Maria assured me this was healthy, normal, good. He's become fully integrated with the other foxes. He's even courting one of the vixens. You gave him an incredible gift, Sarah, life itself, and then you gave him the even greater gift of freedom. I stopped visiting after that. It was time to let Rusty belong completely to his new world. But I think about him often, especially during early mornings when I take my walks. Sometimes I see wild foxes in the forest, Never him, he's too far away. But each sighting reminds me of the red kit I found 3 years ago. My daughter Emma visits regularly now, often bringing my grandchildren. They love hearing the story of Rusty, though I'm careful to emphasize the lessons. Wild animals aren't pets. Rehabilitation should be left to professionals. Loving something sometimes means letting it go. Last month, I started volunteering at the same sanctuary where Rusty lives. I help with feeding, enrichment, education programs. I haven't seen Rusty there. His enclosure is in a restricted area. But Maria says he's doing wonderfully, that he successfully bred last spring and is now a father. The irony isn't lost on me. I raised Rusty because I was lonely, because losing my husband had left a void I tried to fill with something vulnerable that needed me. But Rusty taught me that real love isn't about holding on. It's about knowing when to let go. I'm not lonely anymore. I have my volunteer work, my family, my friends, my morning walks where I commune with the wild world without trying to possess it. I appreciate nature differently now, not as something to control or domesticate, but as something to respect, observe, and protect from a distance. People often ask if I regret raising Rusty, if I'd do it differently. Honestly, I don't know. I broke laws, risked my safety, possibly harmed Rusty by habituating him to humans, but I also saved a life that would have otherwise ended in that cold forest. I gave him love when he needed it most, and eventually, I gave him the space to be what he truly was, a wild fox. Sometimes I dream about him. In these dreams, he's running through endless forests, his red coat blazing in dappled sunlight, his magnificent tail streaming behind him. He's free, wild, complete. And when I wake from these dreams, I feel at peace. This morning, during my walk, I found a red fox feather caught in a bush, those distinctive guard hairs from a fox's coat. I took it home and placed it on my desk where I work. It's a reminder of Rusty, yes, but also a reminder of an important truth. Sometimes the greatest act of love is releasing what we love most. My name is Sarah Mitchell. I'm 46 years old, and 3 years ago, a red fox kit followed me home. I raised him with all the love I had, and when his wild instincts awakened, threatening to destroy us both, I learned the hardest lesson of all, that some creatures are meant to be wild, and loving them means setting them free. Rusty taught me that, and I'll be grateful to him for the rest of my life.